She fined me for swimming in my own lake, held up a glossy paper with a gold seal like she'd been sworn in by the governor, and told me I had 24 hours to pay, or it would triple. I was still dripping on the dock, thinking, lady, I'm not even in your HOA, when she smiled like a cat that found the laser pointer and said, "Everyone here is part of the community." Mr. Hart snapped another photo and marched back through my milkweed like she owned the trail. That's how it started, 3 sentences that yanked my quiet life by the collar and dragged it into somebody else's power trip. And yeah, that happened. Name's Miles Hart. Shop teacher, Cedar Hollow Road. Little Kettle Lake. My grandmother Ruth carved out with a bulldozer in 1951, the kind of place where you learn to breathe again. At 6:10 most mornings, I slip in the waters warm as a handshake, red-winged blackbirds tuning up, and I do 3 slow laps while the world wakes up. Then came Paige Larkins in her khaki vest and clipboard, rattling off noise nuisance, unauthorized aquatic use, failure to obtain permits, like she'd memorized a script, handing me a $480 citation in a plastic sleeve, complete with a seal. I swear she designed herself. I said as politely as I could, while soaking wet, I'm not in Timberline Oaks. And she said, you should Google adjacency, and walked away. You know what I mean? When I say you can feel a chill move into a room, even when you're standing outside. That, I thought it would blow over with a deed and a cup of coffee, but by Thursday, my mailbox had a rash. Unsightly vegetation, unpermitted water platform, wildlife disruption because a duck quacked during my freestyle. I laughed until I saw neighbors I've known for years avoid eye contact near the apples. Paige was canvassing with her binder, telling folks I was a health hazard running some unlicensed aquatic facility, and then an emergency HOA meeting. I didn't know I was starring in, turned into a true crime slideshow. Me projected on a pull-down screen from angles that could only be her second-story window. For a second, the room hummed along. Then somebody's grandma asked Paige, "How'd you get all those pictures?" And the word creepy fluttered through the folding chairs like a moth. That was my first breath in days. I did what my kids in shop hear all semester. Measure twice, cut once. I printed the deed, the 1951 permit for the dam. Ruth poured with 3 farmhands and a borrowed mixer, and the survey stamped so many times it looked like a passport. City Inspector Ortiz walked the shoreline with me, tapped the dock posts with his boot grind, and said, "This dock's older than my hairline. It's grandfathered, and you are outside Timberline Oaks by a country mile." He wrote it down, circled it on the plat, drew an arrow that even a stubborn cousin could follow. And I thought, okay, logic wins. We all go home, except bullies don't retire because you brought paper. Next morning at 6:10 upstairs, light glowed across the water camera shutter, whispering click, click, click like a metronome. I tried 7:30, then Benauime 45. She adjusted, and my cameras caught her tiptoeing through my hostas with a contractor's tape at dawn, narrating setbacks and buyer timelines. Like my backyard was already a listing. Then the calls. My principal, Miss Hargrove, concerns about unsafe water activities. Then my weekend tutoring clients, unlicensed business under community investigation. 3 cancellations in 2 days. It's a special panic when your reputation starts wobbling because someone won't stop shaking it. I called a lawyer. Her name's Nia Chandler, and she talks the way a torque wrench feels smooth and exact. She listened while her pen never stopped. Then, said Miles, "This is harassment. trespassing, abuse of process. And if those photos were taken, how you say, maybe stalking. The good news is you're a process guy, so we document. We cataloged every letter. Pulled image metadata from the photos page attached to her complaints, let timestamps and GPS do their boring, lethal work. Same angle, same time, same fixed position, nest in her second-story window. Then, we subpoenaed HOA emails, and that's when the floor tilted. Buried under corporate-sounding subject lines was a sentence that turned my stomach. Once a pattern of violations is established, we can pursue a compliance sale. Parties already interested. Parties as in developers, as in my home, measured like a profit equation. If you've ever felt the switch flip from annoyed to furious, you know that heat behind the eyes. You know what I mean. The brick through the window arrived taped to my front door. Notice of lien $12,000 in fines and administrative costs filed with the county, like a plastic gun that still gets you tackled. A fake lien is real until you pay to prove it's fake, which means your refinance, your sale, your rainy day roof. Fix all hit a wall. Naya went into emergency mode, filings flying like confetti, and while she was tearing at the paperwork, we found the slop that would hang Paige. Backdated notices. Invented provisions. Authority she didn't have when. Written like she did. The court sent us to mediation. Retired Judge Dixon asked us to explain ourselves. I said, I want to swim in water my grandmother made without being photographed, fined, or lied about, and Paige launched into a TED Talk about community welfare until the judge held up a hand and said, Miss Larkin's jurisdiction is not of ya. Paige snapped, I am the HOA. I make the rules hit the binder so hard, cups rattled, and the court reporter typed a gift into the record. Mediation ended 5 minutes later. Yeah, that happened. Trial day had that first snap of autumn baked into it. Packed courtroom neighbors, craning a reporter a couple of my students' parents pretending they weren't there for the drama. Paige's fourth attorney tried to paint me as a stubborn loner, ignoring reasonable standards. Nia tried the case like a clean 3-step rebuild. Phase 1, jurisdiction. Deed dam permit survey with stamps for Days Ortiz on the stand, explaining plats and lines like he was teaching 8th graders. Mr. Hart's parcel sits outside Timberline Oaks, like the moon outside a snow globe. Phase 2, harassment. The timeline, the mailbox rash, the footage of Paige measuring at 6:57 a.m., the calls to my school and clients, the income I lost that might be small to some folks, but not to a mortgage. Phase 3, motive. Nia dimmed the lights and put up an email with the subject line. Distressed opportunities, Summer Copper Summit. Partners talking motivated seller scenarios, a draft commission sheet with a 6% finder's fee if she could facilitate acquisition below market. On the easel in thick marker one sentence. This wasn't enforcement. It was a business plan. When Paige took the stand, she put on her reasonable voice, but cross-examination is a slow leak. Did you photograph Mr. Hart from your second-story window? Naya asked. Yes or no? For community safety, Paige said. Dodging. Yes or no? Did you enter his property without permission to take measurements? I was verifying setbacks for. Yes or no? Did you file a lien for fines? You had no legal authority to impose. Our community standards require. Yes or no? By the time Naya asked how much money she stood to make if I sold low, the mask had slipped off. I was protecting property values. Paige snapped, voice climbing walls. He was wrecking our community with his selfish habits. The judge's eyebrows went north. The gallery went still, and if you've never watched someone hand you your case, it looks exactly like that. The jury stretched once, came back in 38 minutes, found for the plaintiff on every count. The judge read the numbers without drama. Damages for emotional distress and lost income attorney's fees. A permanent injunction keeping Paige 500 feet from my property and away from my employer and clients. $1,200 total. And then the line I'll tell my grandkids. Associations do not extend beyond their boundaries because someone feels strongly. You cannot manufacture authority by printing letterhead and inventing a seal. She referred the lien and the stalking for potential criminal charges. I didn't cheer, didn't pump my fist. I just breathed the kind of long exhale you take after a near miss on black ice. After that, the neighborhood remembered how to be one. Timberline Oaks held an election so fast, you could still smell toner. Picked a retired nurse who knows the difference between care and control. Sent me a letter with regret in the verbs. Folks who had signed Paige's petition knocked on my door. Owned it. Said, we got swept up. We forgot to ask questions. Saturdays we started free lake swims, orange vests, a ring buoy hanging on the dock, like a promised kids learning to float, and parents learning how to spot the difference between a lifeguard and a hall monitor with a badge they printed at home. I used part of the judgment to buy safety gear and seed a fund for the next neighbor who gets steamrolled by a title and a binder. The upstairs window across the lake has new owners, now twins who wave like I'm a Disney character when I backstroke near the dock. Do I still glance up sometimes? Yeah, healing isn't a straight line. And here's your twist, because life loves a sequel. A flyer just showed up about an ordinance to give HOAs advisory authority over properties near their borders to protect cohesion. Sounds gentle when you say it fast like a blanket instead of a rope. But once you crack a door for people who love control, they bring a moving truck. Maybe it never passes. Maybe it does, because folks are tired, and the word cohesion feels cozy. But I'm awake now, and so are a lot of neighbors who thought civics was yard sales and fireworks. So tell me, where would you draw the line between community standards and private rights, and who gets to hold the pen? When that line is drawn. Have you seen rules used like a mask for a power grab, or an HOA that actually did the right thing when it counted? Would you have paid the fine and kept your head down, or fought until a judge said your name out loud in a room that echoes? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've got a story about property power, or a time you were underestimated and pushed back anyway. I'm listening.